Oh man, oh man, oh man, it's time. It's time. It is time. You ready? Let's go. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seed Tech, and today we are finally taking a look at the Model O gaming mouse from Glorious PC Gaming Race. For transparency, all the mice shown in today's video were sent out by Glorious for review, but as you should know by now, doesn't affect my review in any way. Alright, let's take a minute to clear some stuff up about the Model O versus Odin. Odin was not a code name. This mouse is called the Model O, as in the first letter of Odin, which is to mean that eventually there may be 3 other mice in the Odin line, but there's no plans officially confirmed for any of that yet. Before we jump in, grab a snack, put some coffee on, have a seat, get comfortable. We are going deep. Alright, so the Model O is a lightweight RGB 6-button wired gaming mouse. It's an ambi shape, but only side buttons on the left side, so it's primarily right-handed use, and it tips the scales at a very lean 67 grams. It comes in 2 different colors and 2 different coatings, which is pretty ambitious for an initial launch, so you get your choice of either white or black, and then you get your choice of either glossy or matte. Be aware that the glossy coating affects both the weight of the mouse and the price tag. Matte versions are $49.99 and weigh 67 grams, where the glossy versions are $59.99 and weigh 68 grams. I don't even know where to start here, man. Let's take a look at the packaging like real quick. I never do this, but it's really nice. In terms of presentation, it's right up there with the flagship Logitech stuff. So you get a really sturdy box with raised spot glass and hollow foil. Nice 2-piece box shell with a presentation tray, a couple of stickers, a welcome card. Everything feels super premium. And normally this might raise a red flag here because packaging can be really expensive, and obviously this figures into the total unit cost, but as you'll see, the amount of stuff that they packed into this mouse at this price point honestly leaves me wondering where they found room in the budget for this. So the body is riddled with these hexagonal holes, obviously drawing immediate comparisons to the Final Mouse design. Final Mouse was the first one to the table with this, but let's just clear this up right now. This is not a Final Mouse shape, and these are not Final Mouse holes. These are smaller and grouped tighter, and what this does outside of obviously cutting weight is makes the surface of the shell feel smoother overall. With the Final Mouse, you're aware the mouse you're holding has holes in it. This effect is greatly reduced on the Model O. I'm not going to go so far as to say you won't notice it when it's in the palm of your hand because people have different levels of sensitivity to this, but I will say that I don't notice it at all once this mouse is in hand. Alright, let's knock out paper specs and hardware and then we'll get into the good stuff. Sensor is a PMW 3360. Everybody should be pretty familiar with this sensor by now. The implementation here is solid. There's no surprises. Mouse 1 and 2 switches are Omron. These are rated at 20 mil, not the 50 mil version. Side buttons feel like Omron to me, but it's not explicitly stated, and I really didn't want to do a teardown on this mouse. And same thing with the click on the mouse scroll wheel as well. I have no idea what that is. It's really hard to talk about the feature set of this mouse without talking about the software, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Yes, there is software. Yes, it is entirely optional. The only reason it exists is so you can go in and really dial in some of the settings that you can't access on the hardware. And yes, the changes you make will be saved to the mouse and will travel with you, so after you get everything set up the way you want it, technically you no longer need the software installed. This is how peripheral software should be handled. Bravo. For RGB, it's on the scroll wheel and you've got 2 strips along the sides, similar to like a Mamba Elite. There are 8 modes and off. These modes can be changed directly from the mouse. You can change color mode, change speed, rotate through all the single color modes, and turn all the RGB off directly from the mouse without installing the software. Inside the software, you can dial in more specific colors, but what you can't do, at least at this point, is assign individual custom zone RGB. So for instance, if you want your scroll wheel to be one color and the strips down the sides of the mouse to be a different color, that's going to be a no-go. At least for now. Quality of the RGB and diffusion in the side panels is very good. On some colors that require RGB blending, you may get an occasional weird effect. Like when I do cyan, the tail end of the LED throws green, and because you can see through the shell, it's obvious, especially on the white one. The DPI adjustment is a single button toggle that runs through 4 levels by default with an LED indicator on the underside of the mouse. By default, you get 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. Pretty standard stuff. But you can go into the software and change the amount of DPI steps, as high as 6, as low as 1. You can adjust X and Y values independently, and they move in steps of 100. The lowest DPI level is 400, and you can actually reassign the colors for each of the individual steps. So if you have another mouse that you use often, you can match them up to make things feel more consistent. Starting with button configs, it has all the basic remap stuff. It does support DPI clutching or sniper button functionality here too if you want to use the forward side button. The lowest DPI for the clutching is 400 as well. I just want to say that again in case you regularly snipe at 200, you need to be aware of that. There's macro support. You have adjustments for sensitivity, scroll speed, double click speed, and lift off distance. You get polling rate adjustment, and they also give you access to debounce time, which like nobody does. Debounce actually controls the adjustment for click latency. It comes set to 10 milliseconds by default, but if you're a super high level player, you can reduce this latency. Catch is, the lower you go, the more you run the risk of the mouse double firing. 10 milliseconds is what they consider like a safe value for the majority of players, but you can play with this. Their own testing showed that you may be able to get this down as low as 4 milliseconds before you see double clicks, but your mileage may vary. You can save each setup to one of 3 different profiles in the software, and you can save the current profile directly to the mouse. I don't believe that there's a way to store all 3 profiles directly to the hardware and cycle in between them. If there is, I was not able to figure this out. Okay, cable here is called the Ascended cord, and it's different. I gotta keep it 100 here. I'm not crazy about the aesthetic. It's kind of got this floppy shoelace thing going on. It's not as slim as you would normally expect from a mouse cable, but form follows function here, and what this is the most flexible mouse cable outside of an aftermarket paracord, and it's pretty damn close to an aftermarket paracord. In terms of flex, it's better than any stock paracord on the market, and somehow still managed to hit all the compliance specs globally, which is a huge feat of engineering. They also nailed the angled cable exit as well. I would have attempted to paracord this mouse just to see what the process was like, but there's no extra feet in the box. I do have some on order now, so we'll dig into that in a different video sometime over the next couple weeks. Speaking of feet, these are what they call G-skates, and they're pretty legit for stock feet. They have a lot of the same features that you'd find in a Hyperglide, seems to be a very similar material, rounded edges, the stuff you normally look for. But tested on a standard QCK pad, they exhibit slightly more drag than the Hyperglides. If you didn't have a mouse on Hyperglide sitting right next to your Model O, you'd probably never notice, but I know a lot of you do. Again, for stock feet, these may be the best I've seen. Less drag even than like a G Pro wireless. And they'll sell replacements on the website for like $7, and they'll always be in stock, so no ridiculous wait times and no insane eBay reseller pricing. Okay, where are we? Clicks and scroll wheel? Mouse 1 and 2 are classic Omron. Light, fast, tactile. Lighter than an S2, way lighter than an FK, maybe a little lighter, but pretty similar to a G Pro wireless, and dead spot on with the final mouse. Side buttons are positioned perfectly for me in a palm grip. They're really snappy, little more travel than an S2, little less travel than the final mouse. Scroll is light, tactile, mostly silent with a little shell noise, but the scroll itself isn't audible like a Zowie. Pretty high profile in the shell, no side-to-side tilt, rubberized coating. Clicks are much lighter than final mouse, lighter than Zowie, pretty close to like the G Pro wireless. As for coating, I found myself going back to the matte coating more often than not. The gloss has a good grip to it, more so than the Davina series, but I just naturally found myself wanting to use the matte more. Ah, here we are, size and shape. Official dimensions are 128 millimeters long, 59 across where the middle where you're actually grip, 37.5 millimeters high at the peak, and 26 millimeters high at the scroll. So that lands it very close to a Zowie FK1, either dead on or within 1 millimeter on every measurement. Now, the difference between this and the FK1 is that the trigger tips themselves are a touch higher, the peak is a little further forward, and the rear end of the mouse doesn't fall off as fast. This one's a little thicker in the rear to give you some palm support. The hump is a little less pronounced than the G Pro wireless, it's a lot less pronounced than the S1 or the ZA, less than a final mouse. It also lacks the weirdo front flaring on the final mouse. I still get that pocket too for those nice fingertip adjustments. Shape-wise, this is about as safe as it gets. It nails it for me for palm grip. In a claw grip, it's got a little support there on the hump right behind the knuckle that you don't get on the FK1. Feels really weird to me in fingertip grip. Honestly, I don't know how to play with a fingertip grip at all. And for reference, again, my hand is 20.5 centimeters from palm to fingertip and 10.5 centimeters across. So it's really safe, and it's probably gonna fit the bill for the majority of users out there. Because I know people will ask this or the trusty S1 that I always rave about. And I hesitate to answer that here because peripherals are such a personal choice, and I feel like it cheapens the review a bit, but I will. The shape of the S1 just works better for my hand personally. In a perfect world, I could have the S1 in matte with the side buttons from the S1 and the scroll wheel and the weight of the Model O all in the same mouse. The only people who might not like this mouse are people that like a little hump to their mouse. Sorry, there was no better way to say that. S1, S2 guys, G403 guys, Zowie like ZA series guys, to a lesser extent maybe even G502 guys. This may not work for you, but I feel pretty safe in saying that this is going to be a flexible, comfortable shape for the majority of users out there. And there's so much in this video that I didn't really spend a lot of time on how it plays, but if you didn't pick up on it from the review, it plays extremely well, and it took like 0 time for me to adjust to. I took it out of the box, set it on the desk, and started running. running it. That was it. I primarily used it on a QCK and a Helios, and it just worked. No sensor weirdness, no double clicks. The lightweight is killer in game, and thanks to the cord, it plays like it's basically wireless. Really, I don't know what else you could want. Ooh, is that it? I think that's it. Let's wrap it up. The best way I can say it is this. With regards to peripherals and gaming products, there are very clearly products out there that are not designed by people who game. And sometimes, to a greater effect, there's products that are designed with the feedback from people that do game, what the actual designers themselves don't. And then sometimes, very rarely, there are products designed by people who game. The Model O is clearly, obviously, down to the very smallest detail, designed by people who game. It's a love letter to the community. It's an illustration of the struggle between trying to give the consumer what you know they deserve, while still somehow managing to be globally compliant for safety and fire regulations and everything else, and then somehow still managing to be profitable. The fact that they can offer us this much mouse at this price point has me looking sideways really hard at a lot of other companies right now. My only real gripe here is that they could have included side buttons on the other side as well to make this mouse more accessible. You could also make the argument that they could have pulled back on packaging a little bit, so they could have included the Omrons that are rated at 50 mil for the mains. That point's not lost on me. Thank you to Glorious for sending these out, for giving me the opportunity to review these early, and for bringing this product to market. The game has changed, man. This is a $50 mouse. Obviously, it's not gonna work for every person and every play style, but for FPS, they nail it. I honestly hope they sell 1 million of these so that they can bring these out in different sizes and different shapes in the future. Now, if you're one of the few people that were waiting on reviews and you haven't actually grabbed one of these yet and you want to, there are affiliate links in the description below. If you use those, it really helps me out. Any questions about anything we covered today, just hit me up in the comments, or even better, drop by the Discord. Let's talk about it. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.